Welcome back to the GeekWave. This is a low budget show. It's the show so low it has no budget. And turn on channel 6 because we're going to be reporting a bunch of news today. That's a joke. We're not reporting any news. We'll actually talk about that in a minute here. This is the April O'Neil episode. Last week we did the Shredder one. Absolute blast talking about that freak and that lunatic in the cheese grater costume. Now let's talk about probably the most important fictional character in my life aside from Moon Knight, like somebody who has shaped my being in a lot of ways, and I can't wait to talk about her. April O'Neil. Yeah. It's weird, okay, we'll get into that in a minute here. We do have a little bit of housekeeping to get into just for what the future of this show is going to look like for the next little bit. I did have some news pieces to talk about. I made a list like I do every week. I compiled a couple of things where I'm like, okay, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about that, but I have no desire to talk about any of it, really. Because at the same time, we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. The SAG-AFTRA strike is upon us. And the WGA strike is still upon us. And with both of those things happening simultaneously, my enthusiasm to cover news in Hollywood and just like movies and TV, it's gone down drastically. Like there was a trailer and some casting we could talk about, but I'm also like, I don't know. I was kind of hesitant to even talk about this kind of stuff because I was just thinking, how far in do I want to go? Like there's been some clarification recently, like the role of like a critic and a creator of content in that capacity, what they can talk about with the SAG stuff and everything like that. And yeah, I've been accused on other platforms of being a scab, but I'm like, no, I'm not. So I don't want to do it. You know, I don't want to just sit down and try to talk about like how good Hollywood is because it's not right now. And I'm not enthusiastic about that. There are movies that I want to see. And there are some really exciting things within there that's going to be cool. And I'll still be talking about movies and I'll still be talking about television because that stuff it's worth talking about, even though the industry is in flux and people should be paid better and people deserve a living wage and everyone sucks if they're a billionaire. Name one good billionaire. You can't. Everything's terrible. It's bad. Strikes are important. They're supposed to be disruptive and chaotic and take people down. So let's do it. Let's knock them dead. Let's get that money. You just see some of these residual checks and it just breaks your heart and it destroys you. And the more I read about it and the more I look at everything, I have no desire to support like upcoming projects. And I mean, I'm going to support upcoming projects. Of course I am. But I don't want to just like, did you see who they cast in Superman Legacy? Like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about the Wonka trailer. I'll talk about like an actual movie when it's out. I'll talk about a TV show when it's out. Comic book stuff we'll keep talking about, of course. And maybe if there's something not associated with like, you know, SAG or the WGA that we could talk about. Because they showed the first trailer. No, not trailer, the first poster for the new Toho Godzilla. And that was kind of interesting. I liked seeing that. Godzilla -1. That's exciting. That might be the only movie I want to talk about now. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't think I'm crazy for this, but for the next couple of weeks, just until like things start to figure themselves out. Not even figure themselves out, but there's a clear message in front of it and support is going in the right direction. I think we're going to be very loose on the news we talk about on this show. Maybe that means I'll fill it in with something else, and maybe we'll do like a couple topics a week or something. We'll see what happens there. But as it stands, I just don't want to get excited for stuff because I can't. I just can't. I'm not in the mood for that, if that makes sense. And I think it does. I think more often than not lately, we are seeing the support for this cause in the right places, and that's a good start. We're headed in the right direction. So I guess we could do comic book news and fill it in there. You know what? We might do comic book news. We might do very sparingly stuff for the news. We'll see what happens. But as it stands, I'm not talking about it. I'll review it on here and, on my other social media platforms. If you want to review on like TikTok or Twitter or Letterboxd or Instagram or Threads or any of that crap, I'm on all those platforms. I'll still talk about this stuff on there. If there's a piece of news where I can just give like a little tweet about it, I will. At the same time, I hate Twitter, so what is even anything? So I can't get excited. So we're not gonna cover much, and that's okay. Sometimes you just gotta stand by what you're feeling, and I'm feeling that this sucks, and I just don't want to hype up a studio, I might be headed to Universal Studios soon too, and I'm just kind of like, do I even want to go support them? It's weird because like I'm planning a vacation and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to go there. And so like, because if you've seen some of the stuff that Universal has done recently with like, they might be the most egregious of the studios right now for the picket lines, and that kind of bums me out. So it's crazy and it sucks, and just pay people more. You don't need all that money, It's so bizarre. Entertainment and creativity and art is so important. It's one of the strongest tools we have to express and create and craft and teach. And we should celebrate it and help those who create that stuff live stably, It shouldn't be hard to live if you create stuff. I don't know. That's a whole other issue of society, but who cares? I support them, and we're gonna take a quick break. And when we come back from that break, we'll actually start talking about April O'Neil, and we'll get into that stuff before this gets any more dark and dramatic. Now, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. April O'Neil was my first crush, I think, in any form of media. I just remember being a little boy, seeing that redhead and being, yeah, that's kind of cool. I do like that, though. And then it's just stuck with me my entire life. I love April O'Neil. One of my favorite characters in any form of franchise. Just a really fun concept that has many variation. There are so many different interpretations of this character, and that is fun. Like, that's like a cool thing to see. With the Shredder, when we talked about him last week, there are different interpretations, but more or less it's just like an angry dude out for revenge wearing a tin can. April can be many things, and that's really cool. And I guess your favorite interpretation does depend on the era you're from and what you seek in this kind of stuff and what you look for in this kind of stuff. I will say this, though, and this might just be evocative of like a female character existing in any form of media. If you just search her up on Google Images, there are a lot of interesting pictures that show up. It's concerning, and that's fun. Look, whatever floats your boat. I'm just amazed by how many appear that quickly. It's kind of fun. All in that one basic aesthetic that you're probably familiar with, which is the yellow. And it's kind of cool that like her color is yellow because it contrasts the other turtles and that kind of stuff. So that's really fun. But you're talking about a Lois Lane parody, which is what she is. Lois Lane's a reporter and journalist. That's what April O'Neil is. It's as clear as day to me. That's what that is. But she is just a city girl, an urban person, just of this, the concrete jungle. That's what she is. Lois has that army brat in her. She's a little more like headstrong and stuff. There's a confidence to April that specifically comes from Lois Lane. And Lois Lane, one of my favorite characters to ever exist too. So maybe I just like women that would like tell me what to do and yell at me when I'm being dumb. Maybe I'm learning something about myself. Or maybe I just want to be a guy holding a big stupid camera into my eye, telling someone, and we're clear. Maybe that's what it is. That seems like the ideal job for me. I don't know. She's just the best. What a cool character. I love it. I love her. I love every interpretation. There is, and I mean this, maybe no bad interpretation of April. Is that controversial? Because there's some pretty weird ones in here. One in particular that we'll talk about at the end, I think is going to be a dividing thing for a lot of people. But the truth be told, I don't hate Megan Fox in those movies. I don't think she's the best part, but she's far from the worst. Should we start with the movie interpretations? We went comic books last time. Maybe we'll start with the movie interpretations because we have like 4 distinctive versions of April on the big screen. We have the 90s girls, we have the animated one, and Megan Fox. Now we'll start with the 90s girl, which is Judith Hogan. And look, that's the one. I believe that is the one that pretty much started this for everybody. She kind of like became the definitive version of the character. And you know what? She's great. She had great chemistry with the turtles. She looked hot, just like sitting down at a table, just watching them do a Cagney impression. Like, it's awesome. She was intense. And for a minute, she did wear the yellow. And we appreciate that when it comes up. But it's just so fun. And she just nailed it. And she seemed like a clearly like, you know, a Margot Kidder type. Just like the energy, the smile, the intensity, the fun of the whole situation. Like, this is a weird thing happening to somebody. And she's holding it well and she's carrying it well. And that is what she did. The definitive version, best in live action, maybe. The thing is, and I've said this, we've talked about Paige Turco a bit too. She's good. They're both really good. I mean, Judith was in one movie, and that movie is the best movie that's ever made, ever in the history of cinema. And she just nailed like the fun nature of the character, the intensity of the nature. Like, it's the only time I think in any of like the actual movies where April just like pisses everybody off because she's investigating too hard. Like, she loses her job because she calls out the entire police department. And I respect that. And it's just because, like, yeah, these crime waves spreading across New York, they're like, you know, Japanese ninja lore, and she's right, and everyone's like, shut up. It's like, no, I'm right. The police are the problem. And you know what? The police are the problem. She got it right. This April's the bomb. She's the coolest and the best. And she made it work. And I like Paige Turco. I do. We've talked about it. The time this video comes out, we haven't released the video for the third of the live action movies of the 90s. When Turco shows up in Secret of the Ooze, it is just, yeah, she's doing great. She's smiling. She's having a good time. She's very naturalistic, a little bit more like of a person, I think. Like, she has a more genuine reaction, but give me the over-the-top Judith Hogue stuff. It's great. It's amazing. I do like Turco, though. And in that third movie, she is asked to do some insane stuff. And by that, I mean, none of it's good. But it's so weird. So, yeah, I mean, Paige Turco kind of caught in some weird movies there. But, you know, she made it work. She was committed. And she had fun. And her haircut in the third one was invocative of the 80s cartoon, so that's something, right? Is that something? Does that mean anything to anybody? I don't know, but hey, I like that in both of those like characters, the turtles are just like enthralled when she's on the TV screen, even though they see her in real life, and that's cool. I get that. So yeah, Judith is arguably the better one. But hey, I'm not going to complain. They're all really good. They're all really good. I say this all the time because April is a character you can't mess up. And they haven't. And we'll talk about it more when we get there. Now, coming up soon in Galactic Tales, we'll be jumping into TMNT, the 2007 movie, which, in my humble opinion, is a great movie. And I'm super excited to go back and talk about this one. It has that classic video game animation of the era, and it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, which is like such inspired casting, coming off of like her Scooby-Doo run, which I know is such a weird thing to say, but like she nailed Daphne, and there is some like part of Daphne inside of April, especially like aesthetic-wise, so I appreciate like that coming together, and that being like a choice that they make for this character. But this April, she's kind of dating Casey. They're kind of a little rough around the edges. She's like an exporter of like antiques to like this rich guy. It's like, that's why do you have that job? It makes no sense for a character to have that job, but okay, she has it. She also has like a badass samurai suit because guess what? She's a full-on ninja now, which is something a lot of the later interpretations kind of lean into, is like April actually fulfilling the role of like becoming like one of the turtles. You know, does that make, I mean, I like that. I do think there's something about her like staying independent and being more on like the investigative journalism side and the reporter side, but you know what? I can't complain. Sarah Michelle Gellar has a wonderful voice, and when I just see somebody in yellow spandex with a samurai sword telling Casey Jones to get your shit together, I can't be mad at that. I get it. I get it. That movie's so good. We'll talk about it very soon, but it's such a good, like, it's the thing we don't do anymore with these characters, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't think every interpretation of the Turtles needs them to, like, mature where they, like, have, you know, dramatic struggles, like, internally and, like, what is the meaning of their lives anymore. But I just like that idea where it's like, yeah, we were children who experienced some intense shit, and now we're, like, 18, and everything's just fine, and what do we do? I mean, that's so cool. I love that. And April's role in that was kind of just like, bring Leo home. Hey, you're working for this guy. It is kind of convenient that she's just like there, but I can't be mad at that. This movie rocks. Oh, I'm rewatching it very soon for the video, and it's going to be such a good rewatch. I watch it all the time. That movie has a good Karai, too. Oh, should we have done Karai? Maybe next time we'll come back for Karai, because Karai's sick. Turtles are just great. April's the best. April's the best. She is. And Sarah Michelle Gellar would have made a great live-action April O'Neil. Now, if we were to do another live-action April, who would we want to see? I know everyone wants to go with, like, Sophia Billis, you know, from Dungeons and Dragons, because, like, she's the classic redhead, but I don't know. I think Ayo Edebiri is a good choice for a live-action April. She's got, like, the right snark to it. I don't know. I think she's great, and she's going to do good. Naomi Scott would be pretty good, too, now that I think about it, but we're not talking about those people. Let's talk about Megan Fox for a minute. An actress I like. Yeah, I'll say it. I think Megan Fox is pretty cool. She's pretty, she's funny, she's kind of dorky, and she did what those movies asked of her. Look, I'm dreading the rewatch of those ones, just because a lot of Vernon for no reason, not a lot of Turtles for some reason, but it's the same thing that I liked about the original 90s movie, is that it's an April story, and this kind of is. And I just don't think the world was ready. I don't think anybody was ready for a Megan Fox-led Ninja Turtle movie. She's not the worst part of those movies. Like, the script is bad, and, like, it does get a little goofy when she's just like, I'm gonna, like, dress, and Out of the Shadows especially, when she's, like, takes a sideline to all the goofy cartoon stuff. It's very strange, and they have her, like, dress up like a pinup model. It's weird, and, like, hit on Tyler Perry. But that first movie, when she's just running around with Will Arnett, she can hold her own pretty good. Does she have chemistry with Stephen Amell? No, but he's a bad choice for Casey Jones to begin with, because they didn't let him Casey Jones. But I think she was good. She wore a yellow sweater for some of it. That's pretty cool. And she was just intense, and she held her own. Look, I think there's a lot of hate surrounding Megan Fox as an actress, and just some of the stuff about her has people upset, but I mean, I like her. She's not the worst part of any of those movies. It would be cool if her hair was a little more red, but again, I'm not going to be mad. I don't care how Megan Fox looks. It's Megan Fox, you know? Why be mad at something so trivial? It is kind of red, but it's the way that they use the lighting in those things, too. It just doesn't show up well. I don't know. Do you guys remember when Tyler Perry was Baxter Stockman and they made a joke about Comic-Con? Ah, what a weird movie. What a weird time of our lives. That is going to be an intense rewatch. Oh, man. Just too big and gross, but whatever. And then we have the Mutant Mayhem version, which is Ayo Itabiri, and I'm very excited for her. I'm very excited for her. Like, the thing is, and it's something that I always try to like explain to people, is it's exactly the thing with Marvel, in my opinion. Marvel was always billed as, I should say, Marvel is always billed as the New York outside your window. And in 2023, it's not the same New York as it was in the 60s. There's more variety and diversity and creativity out there, so things look different and feel different. The Turtles are the same way. You can't have like an 80s nostalgia fest in 2023. The Turtles evolve and they change, so when they're actual teenagers, it works. And when you have somebody like April O'Neil being represented in 2023, she's not going to be, the perfectly blonde woman that everyone's been used to seeing. And we'll talk about the ethnicity of April more in a minute, because it's surprisingly a controversial topic. You telling me like the woman from the 80s who like wore a tight yellow jumpsuit revealing cleavage isn't the perfect interpretation of a character? You kidding me? You kidding me if that? Come on. We'll talk about it in a minute. But look, we have mentioned Judith Hoag, Paige Turco, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Megan Fox. None of them are a bad April. But should we save let's go to comic books now, just because that's next on my list here. I remember back in the day seeing one of those classic images of April O'Neil from the Mirage comics. And I remember thinking, okay, that's a nice looking lady. I love it. The Mirage comics, again, I think are very cool. Like, there's a collection I am probably going to buy at some point. And this kind of goes into the thing with the Image. Yeah, because Image was with it for a bit. Look, the April O'Neil of that era, folks, is diverse enough where there is an ambiguity to the ethnicity. Now, some reprints and some recolorings have her drawn and colored as a black woman. And if you are to be believed that the design for April is based off of one of the creator's girlfriends at the time who was of mixed ethnicity, then it is pretty easy to see that April O'Neil has always been a character of a different ethnicity than, the white woman in the jumpsuit. I personally like that more. I do think there is something more interesting, more compelling about April O'Neil being a woman of color, just because it shows like there would be a struggle for her credibility, if that makes sense, where it's like she's trying to report these things and people aren't listening to what she is saying, and it just makes her a little bit more different than someone like the other interpretations of these characters that we've seen a million times over. And then the Mirage stuff, yes, I think some of the earlier stuff, it's a little more clear that she's more white, or it's like hard to say, but look, I'm going to put up the thumbnail. That's the image I'm going off of. Tell me that's a completely white woman and I dare you, because I don't think she is, but I really like the Mirage stuff. A really good April. She's feisty. She's a little bit older too, which I think happens more in like the earlier era of the character. They make her like less a contemporary of the Turtles and like an adult woman, which is fine, I do like, we talked about this a little bit on the video that's not out yet, just like, should the Turtles have a crush on April? Is that a thing that people want to see? Personally, sure. No, yeah, okay. They've never, met a girl before, and there's worse ones you could meet for the first time seeing a lady. But who knows? Who is to say? We'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, Mirage April, great. Image April, kind of the same thing. Sometimes drawn as a black woman and colored as a black woman. Maybe even an Asian woman. Who's to say? We just recolor everything every different way possible. Then we get to IDW, and it's just straight up, we're doing, the redhead white woman. And it's fine. The IDW stuff, a lot like the Shredder, is just like a streamlined version of the character, where it's kind of just an amalgamation of all the different things. She is more a contemporary to the Turtle. She's more like a young adult teenage woman, which I do think is a little more interesting into like today's context, because if the Turtles today are like 15, do we want them hanging out with like a 32-year-old woman, or even like a 26-year-old woman? Like, what is that even? But if it's like, a young girl, and this also is like one of those interpretations too, where she's like a scientist, which some iterations do. The basic thing is she's a reporter, she lives in the antique shop. We try to change that a bit. And sometimes she's like, I'm a scientist working for TCRI or this experimental thing, or like for Baxter Stockman. And that's fine. I like the reporter stuff more just because I'm a Lois Lane diehard. But I do think the IDW stuff did a great job of just like doing that too. And the thing with that, I mean, they have been going forever. So the character's kind of like grown up, and she's been drawn in a many different ways, but she's always just kind of maintained like that Betty Cooper thing. Girl next door is kind of fun, but will take bigger swings at certain things. It's interesting. I respect it. She's a fun character. Not as good as the Mirage stuff, but again, we don't do that anymore. This is what we do now, and what we do now is good. Yeah, it's fine. Again, I'm looking at images of April on Google. Wow, people really like drawing this character in various iterations, don't they? You guys need a hobby or something that's not this. I don't know. It's kind of disturbing. Nah, I love it. Good job. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep making them. Let's talk about the Last Ronin version for a bit. What if she was old and cranky? Yeah. The Last Ronin, I've talked to death about that book. It's not a book I particularly like. The vibe doesn't work for me, but I do think the more we expand it and change it, there is something interesting to portray there. And that April's fine. I haven't read like the Lost Years or like the Next Generation stuff or whatever, but just strictly that April, she's gruff, she's hardened. She's not like Sarah Connor hardened, but she's a little more, resilient and feisty and stuff. Again, all these interpretations, they're good. None of them are bad. I dig that a lot. Let's get to the cartoons now. Oh boy. Here we go. Here we go. Let's start off with the 1980s cartoon, which is the design for April everybody knows, and maybe everybody loves. If you just want to like Google it quickly, there's a lot of images you're going to get that aren't from the cartoon, but it's people drawing April in that style, like the shorter haircut, the cleavage in the jumpsuit. Look, it's a cartoon aimed for kids to sell toys where there has to be a specific meaning, and it's a female character in a male, in an oriented show aimed for young boys. This character isn't going to be perfectly written, perfectly executed, and is kind of a little too sexual and skimpy for what they're doing. Maybe I'm just looking at the artwork too much, but it's the most iconic look. And I do think if we were to attempt to do this look again, it would hold up well. I know why we don't, because it's ridiculous, but there is just something about it that works. Maybe I've just become accustomed to it for too long. It is not my favorite interpretation of April. It's just not. I think it's fun. And this one, she's either like the more damsel in distress character, like getting kidnapped or things are happening to her, or she's just there to make a joke. And you know what? I have no problem with that. It's just not that interesting. And aside from like an iconic design, if I were to go back and watch some of those, I don't know it's going to be that interesting or hold up well. So, I don't know. Look, I don't want to criticize anybody that loves this April, because I do get it. Like, it's very, like, it's weird to say, like, anime-ish, where it's, like, that iconic design that you just think about for, like, that character, but it does work, and it's really interesting. It's kind of fun. I don't know. It holds up well. She's got, like, a news van, and she just carries a microphone with her, and she got, like, a little camera with her, and that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. Like, why would you wear this to, like, an office for, like, news broadcasting? Like, it makes no sense. But, hey, I'm not a reporter. I don't know. I wasn't around in the 80s. I don't know if, like, news broadcasters were just, like, wearing this shit, to work. It doesn't make sense, but hey. Okay. But, I am a man of the 2003 generation. I've said this numerous times before, and I will say it again. That is the April O'Neil that got me on this path to falling in love with April O'Neil. It's the one where she wears, like, the least amount of yellow, but there is, like, an arc where she does put on, like, a jumpsuit and pretends that she's working for, like, a news station. Look, she's got her hair up in is it a bun? I don't know. And she's got a crop top, and she's sassy, okay? I'm a simple man. I know what I like. Somebody who would tell me what to do. I like that. Maybe I just relate to Casey too much sometimes. Not like the same, like, Baberella, but just, not thinking about what to be said or what's talking about. I don't know. This is the April that got me where I am today. I love this interpretation of the character because it is like the Baxter Stockman origin where she's like a scientist and she just kind of like gets more capable as the show goes on, and she learns new things, she tries new things, and I appreciate that. And it's just interesting, and she does put on the jumpsuit, and it's silly, and we make a joke about it, and it works fine. And again, I'm looking at a lot of pictures on Google, and you guys are perverts. What are we doing here? No, it's like a simple design, but it's also kind of like of that era too. It's a little bit more, less like the 80s one, and more like, what's the name of the female in the Gargoyles cartoon? Eliza? Is that who it was? Alyssa? Oh man, I haven't seen Gargoyle. I say like I haven't seen Gargoyles, but I know what Gargoyles is. Yeah, it's a lot like Eliza and Gargoyles. It's just kind of like, hey, she's part of the team, but she's human and she does her own stuff, and there's kind of some chemistry. It's weird that way. Who's to say? It's very much like a post. Like I think like we're gonna be talking about the 2003 cartoon a lot more soon. I do think that whole show is very much like a post Batman the animated series like creation, where we do base it off of the comic books, make it our own thing a little bit, but it can become like the definitive version for all these characters in some capacity, while still being like aesthetically of the 2000s. And that April O'Neil, just the voice, the look, everything about it got me where I am today. And even a little bit, I do like the version from the 2012 cartoon. I mean, that show, I go back and forth on all the time. I think it's really good. And I do like that April where it's kind of like the first time, like fully in one of these properties where April's like a high school girl and we could do high school hijinks, which has become like a thing for these later. The next couple iterations love doing that. And she's still like, she's got the yellow shirt and she's got the red hair and she's kind of fun, but she'll go on the missions, and there's like the weird like thing where Donatello's like obsessed with her, and she's just she's more like headstrong, I guess, where it's like confident and able to do everything, and I appreciate that for April. And the version, she kind of becomes a ninja, I suppose. And she learns lessons, and it's fun, and she has a weird relationship with Splinter, and it's good. And that show has a good Karai, too, and it's just a good show. Like, there's no bad Aprils, okay? There's no bad Aprils. I will keep talking about this forever. There's never been a bad April. And there may never be one. Is April like a character that's as impossible to get wrong? I feel like it is. Because even in Rise of the TMNT, it's fun. It it made a lot of people go mad because why is she talking so loud? Why is she yelling? Why is this like flash animation so like jarring and like a lot? I don't know. But hey, she's good in it. Rise is the one I haven't seen all of. But what I have seen, she's fun. She's vibrant. She's part of the team. She's a young woman who met these guys and is like, yep, they seem cool. It definitely is the one I think the Io Itadori version is going to take the most inspiration from. Not just aesthetically, but I just think in terms of like reaction to things. It's kind of cool. I don't know, I dig it. I dig it. And, okay, there's some more images on Google about it. Yeah, okay. Now, you guys might not like hearing this, but if I were to pick my least favorite of this bunch of really good Aprils, I do think my least favorite is the 80s one. It is the most iconic design, and I would play any video game with that in it. It's cool, but that April kind of sucks. Not sucks. It's just there's so many different interpretations, and that one does not get the chance to be as like strong female character as the rest of them do. Which is weird to say, but I don't think there is a bad one in the bunch. With the Shredder, I could pinpoint that sucks, that sucks, that sucks. With Casey, I could pinpoint, yeah, Stephen Amell was bad at it. With April, not a bad one in the bunch, which is impressive. And it's true. We nailed this character every time we've done it. We have. There hasn't been a bad one. There may be ones that you don't like for different reasons, maybe because you grew up in a certain generation, or you don't appreciate like the changing of skin tone. But if a character was created with like an ambiguous ethnicity, who gives a fuck what color their skin is? April is a young woman in New York City. Not every young woman in New York City is white. I think that's where we're going to end this episode. A little bit shorter, but again, we're not talking about the news. So thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And hey, I'll catch you in the next one. Cowabunga, dude. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.